Hey everybody, this is a project I started about 3 or 4 years ago during the pandemic, and it's kind of crazy to actually get it finished now. I like going through the footage and everything is really weird to see like my kind of older, less confident narration and vocal style. But still, it's a project I worked really hard on. The script is like 8,000 words or something, and the video obviously is something like 48 minutes. So if you stick around and watch it all, I really appreciate it. And here is ranking every episode of Star Wars Clone Wars, with the caveat being I'm only ranking the arcs because it doesn't make any sense to me to have like a 3 episode arc and then rank the 3 episodes individually. So it's yeah, standalones count as their own, but it's all ranked like with things that are together. So I hope you enjoy it. It's been about a 3 year long project to actually get it done. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoy it, let me know. Number 65, Droids Behind Enemy Lines arc. In a season that has some of the best storytelling of any Star Wars content ever, we get this absolute stinker. I had it ranked the same as another episode, but the fact that the runtime of this arc is an hour and a half of absolutely nothing gives it a level of painfulness to watch that nothing else in this show has. The least interesting thing about Star Wars to me will always be droids and bounty hunters, and this is just 4 straight episodes of droids doing nothing. You probably don't remember this arc, and I'm jealous of you for it. An hour and a half of my life I will never get back. Number 64, Evil Plans. This is Cad Bane's introduction chronologically, and we're so lucky that it wasn't actually his first appearance. Essentially, Cad Bane kidnaps C-3PO and R2 goes to a droid spa. It's so dumb, but is the chronological precursor to the Season 1 finale. Very dumb, very boring. Moving on. Number 63, Nomad Droids. You might be sensing a theme at the end of this list. This one is like a bunch of R2 and C-3PO short stories with like a weird through line that doesn't make any sense at all. I could go in depth, but it's not even worth it. For my money, it's the dumbest episode of the series, but not as hard to watch as Evil Plans or the Droids Behind Enemy Lines arc because it's like pretty quick. Number 62, Hunt for Zero. So chronologically, this episode and Evil Plans actually sandwiched the Season 1 finale. It's lucky that they broke it up to introduce Cad Bane before the start of Season 2, or else this would have been one of the worst arcs of the whole series. In this one, we're introduced to a backwater Deep South-esque Hutt planet. We meet the Hutt matriarch. She is horrifying. Everything about this episode is horrifying, and I'm sad that I had to watch it. At least we get Quinlan Voss, who is kinda cool, but we barely ever see again in the series. Number 61, Bombad Jedi. If there's one thing I hate as much as droids and bounty hunters, it's Jar Jar. And this episode is everything wrong with Jar Jar's character in one fell swoop. Number 60, Downfall of a Droid and Duel of the Droids. Man, Season 1 has some stinkers. It was pretty hard to get through, actually. The plot of this one is bad. They lose R2 and have to find him, etc. But the big issue with this one is the animation wasn't totally done. It looks like the second to last render. It is the ugliest episode of the series without a doubt. Also, there's weird house music in this one. I'm not even joking. In a show that typically has great music, the music choice for this episode baffles me. Like, just listen to this. This is a real thing from this episode.
Master, you'll need a droid to help you navigate.
I think Stubby is defective.
Give him another chance, Master. This is the perfect time for you and him to, bond.
All right. Come on, Stubby.
Number 59, Supply Lines. A boring episode with too much Jar Jar. We get the introduction of Jedi Master D, and he is the least skilled Jedi ever. The guy dies to like 11 battle droids while screaming, "Let's make the end memorable." The only people who will remember you are people like me who are shocked at just how lame you are. Number 58, Senate Spy. Padme and Anakin's relationship actually gets some interesting moments in this show that you don't get in the movies, but this episode is so overly dramatic and ham-fisted. Honestly, I really dislike Rush Clovis as a character. I don't really think he works that well. It's like watching the entitled frat douche you know from college get dropped into Star Wars, and I hate it. Number 57. The Disappeared Part 1 and 2. I think these episodes actually are the angriest I got watching this entire series. We didn't get a Mace Windu episode since the end of season 1, and then when they finally give us a Mace Windu episode, one of the most interesting and underdeveloped characters in the entire series, they pair him with fucking Jar Jar. God damn it. Why the fuck do we get Temple of Doom with Mace Windu and Jar Jar? Why waste his character like this? Number 56. Cat and Mouse. This episode introduces us to my least favorite recurring villain in the series, Admiral Trench. Trench suffers from a severe case of show-don't-tell-itis. In this episode, and for the remainder of the series, they build Trench as this genius military commander, and we literally never see him do anything smart or interesting. I mean, he gets outsmarted by Anakin on like the second thing he tries. Weak character, weak writing. Number 55. Blue Shadow Virus and Mystery of a Thousand Moons. I think it's important in prequel writing to try not to overdo the stakes. This episode does not abide by that at all. They find a separatist virus lab on Naboo, and if it gets out, everyone in the galaxy will die. Obviously that can't happen, so these two episodes end up being pretty boring. Ahsoka has some really good moments in here though, so it isn't further down because of that. Number 54. Death Trap, R2 Come Home, and Lethal Trackdown. This one is rough. More than anything else, it's just really, really boring. This one relies on the fact that 11-year-old Boba Fett is a match for Mace Windu, and you just lose the plot for me there. He goes toe-to-toe with Darth Sidious in like 10 years, so I can't really believe that an 11-year-old is a threat to him. This might be lower for me than most people because I expect season finales to be the high point of the season, and this is just bad. I think what saves this episode even a little for me is the Coruscant Underworld action, and we get a little bit of Hondo, and I really love Hondo. He makes every episode he's in a lot better, so it's not as low as it could have been. Number 53. Senate Murders. Unlike most Star Wars fans, I actually find the politics pretty interesting, so I think the political episodes for me average a bit higher than they would for most people. This one just doesn't really do it for me though. Even though I think Padme is a great character, there's just not a lot happening in this one. Number 52. Clone Cadets. Depending on your suspension of disbelief in a sci-fi universe, you can probably overlook the glaring issues with this one and just enjoy the origin story for Domino Squad. For some reason, I can't. The Clone Factory produces millions of clones, but the entire leadership of the system has days to obsess over this group of like 6 underperforming clones. I can't really get past that, so this one's pretty low for me. Number 51. Trespass. It's the one on the snowy world with the talking strawmouth bears. It's a little bit boring, and the message is a little heavy-handed. Not a lot to say about it. Number 50. Shadow Warrior. Dooku and Anakin get a short battle in this one, which really saves it because it's a Naboo Gungan episode, and it is not very good. Number 49. Malevolence Arc. Very much a growing pains episode as the writers learned how to make a compelling arc for this series. This isn't one of them. The plot is that the Separatists developed this EMP cannon thing, and it's destroying entire fleets of ships. But look at it. It's just a circle. Fly around it. You can go light speed. Number 48. Corruption and the Academy. A couple so-so episodes about corruption on Mandalore. They're not all that interesting, but Ahsoka is always good, and Mandalore's pretty cool. Number 47. The Martez Sisters arc. I guess placement is my big issue with this one. My expectations for the final season, where they handpicked the 3 best stories they had left to tell, were just higher than this. Not a lot to say, it's just kind of boring. They literally start and end one of the episodes in the exact same situation. I don't even really dislike the Martez sisters. I just feel like if you're going to have Ahsoka like toughing it out and figuring out things on her own, you can't really have her going back and being a badass functional Jedi in the next episode. Number 46, Jedi Crash and Defenders of Peace. There are quite a few Protect the Village episodes in this series. This is the worst one in my opinion. Ayla Secura is cool though, and the little lemur tribe they're protecting roll all over the place and is really fun to look at. It's one of those season 1 episodes that just kind of blends in. Number 45, Sphere of Influence. The daughters of the governor of some planet get kidnapped. Not really an interesting episode without the main characters of the series. The Pantorans do have these really dope sounding guns though, which is really enjoyable. It's not a bad episode, it just didn't hold my interest very well. Number 44, Mercy Mission. This is the highest of the R2 and C-3PO based episodes. The plot makes no sense at all, with R2, Anakin's personal astromech, and C-3PO, Padme's assistant, hanging out with random clones, but whatever. We get these cool Tim Burton-style tree people, and I think the little native people are adorable. This episode is higher than it deserves to be, for sure. I don't know why I'm okay with it, but I am. This is probably a much worse episode than, like, Clone Cadets for most people, but whatever. Number 43, Holocron Heist, Cargo of Doom, and Children of the Force. It's really fun to watch Cad Bane break into the temple in the first episode, but the two after are just not interesting at all. It is kind of fun to see Sidious always working on stuff for the grand plan behind the scenes though, even if it never ends up factoring in. The third episode especially really drags in this one, so it's pretty low. Number 42, Massacre. It's a Night Sisters episode, and it's fine, I guess. Dooku getting tortured via voodoo doll is kind of funny and definitely the highlight of this episode. Number 41, ARC Troopers. I might get some heat for this, and this is probably the one most people will disagree with, but 99's death doesn't really hit me as hard as a lot of the other deaths in this show. I know that makes me a monster, and I'm sorry. The pacing of this one is just a little bit off for me. It's a story that needed another episode to tell. Everything feels kind of jammed in for such a big and seemingly pivotal battle. Number 40, Lightsaber Lost. A good standalone episode where Ahsoka learns something and grows, so that's good. I like the old turtle Jedi she teams up with to find her lightsaber, and I like the lesson even if it's somewhat ham-fisted. I really wish it ended a different way though, with Ahsoka internalizing the lesson the old Jedi has taught her and using it to solve her problem. Instead, he just kind of solves it for her, so that brings it down a little bit. A pretty good episode nonetheless. Number 39, The Hidden Enemy. This is actually the first episode of Clone Wars I ever saw, so maybe I have a soft spot for it. I really like how it shows Rex and Cody being smart and solving an issue on their own. Humanizing the leading clones pretty early on I think was really good for the show. There's also a decent lightsaber battle between Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ventress, cementing her as the main villain for the first couple seasons of the show. Number 38, Bounty Hunters. Another Protect the Village episode, but one I enjoy a lot more. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka team up with bounty hunters to help them protect their crops from Hondo and his pirates. It's a decent episode, but it's another village defense episode, and they're all kinda similar. This one has Hondo, though, and Hondo is always a win. We also get my favorite bounty hunter in the series, Edu, and his little helmet guy. Number 37, Night Sisters, Monster, Witches of the Mist. I think I like this arc well enough. It has its moments, but there's one thing that's difficult to get past. In the first episode, when Ventress tries to kill Dooku, they hit him with a poison dart that makes his vision fuzzy so they can kill him easier. If they can do that, why don't they just hit him with a strong enough poison to kill him? Anyway, the second part, picking Dooku's new fake apprentice, is boring, and then Dooku is there, and they could have just killed him while he was on Dathomir. I also don't understand how the Night Sisters interact with the Force. Like, they just give Savage Force sensitivity somehow? Anyway, in the third part, Savage becomes Dooku's apprentice, a position he holds for literally 12 minutes of screen time before Ventress makes him turn on Dooku. The pacing of this episode is too breakneck, is all I'm saying. Also, Savage is the only character in the series I think power creep is a real issue for. After 12 minutes of training, he can successfully duel Anakin and Obi-Wan, two of the best Jedi in the Order. I think the fuck not. I'm not sure why I have this high. Maybe I'm seeing its potential more than what it is. Maybe I'm a sucker for lightsaber fights. This is as high as I can rank something just based off lightsaber fights, I think. Number 36, The Deserter. Rex gets shot and he has to get fixed up in the home barn of a clone deserter. There's actually some real discussion of ethics and what the Republic has created. Basically a slave army that they've convinced owes their lives to the Republic, and I think Rex learned something. By the end of the series, he's really one of the most compelling characters, and arcs like this are what build that characterization. Really good episode. It's hurt by a very, very weak B story, though, of just following whiny General Grievous around. Number 35, Dooku captured and the Gungan General. If there was no Jar Jar rescue, this could have been a top 10 episode, honestly. It's our introduction to Hondo, who is an absolute breath of fresh air in a pretty stale season 1. The idea of this band of idiots outwitting the main bad guy, who's like so perfect and refined, is hilarious, and it doesn't really feel misplaced either. The pirates' strength is everyone assuming they're idiots. Dooku's arrogance gets him captured, and then Obi-Wan and Anakin too. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Dooku being chained together is also where the series peaks comedically. A lot of genuine laughs. And then Jar Jar saves the day. God damn it. Number 34, Hostage Crisis. Fun introduction to Cad Bane. I dislike bounty hunters generally in Star Wars, but Cad Bane is an exception. He's quippy but very calculating and intimidating. I don't have a lot else to say other than I'm glad this was our introduction to him and not the episodes that sandwich this one chronologically. Number 33, Assassin. An episode I'm sure you forgot about. Ahsoka has visions of Padme being assassinated and is tasked with protecting her. It's a good episode to keep up with how Ahsoka has grown as a Jedi thus far. I also really like the Padme-Ahsoka pairing. Padme is a great mentor for her and makes up for a lot of the weaknesses that Anakin has as a teacher. It makes them make more sense as a couple than almost any of the actual Anakin-Padme episodes. Number 32, Ambush. At the halfway mark, we have the pilot. It's pretty good. Yoda has to lead a small band of clones against a droid fleet and is stoic and teaches them lessons along the way. We also get Yoda just turning off Ventress's lightsabers, and it's pretty funny. Number 31, Zillo Beast and Zillo Beast Strikes Back. I disliked these a lot as a kid, but for some reason I liked them a lot more on my last watch through. I can't tell you why, maybe I got soft. It's really fun to watch a giant monster destroy Coruscant, and giant monsters seem like one of the only thing that's actually a real threat to very powerful Force users. It's also the first and maybe only time Sidious, as Palpatine, seems thrown off in the entire series. Also, at the end, he asked the scientist lady to figure out how to clone the Zillo beasts. Something about the Empire with the stash of these giant monsters is really, really funny to me. Number 30, Bad Batch Arc. This might be the most controversial ranking on here, but I'm not really a huge fan of the Bad Batch Arc. There are a few too many little plot holes that really add up, and I find them very distracting, and the pacing doesn't really work for me that well. I do generally enjoy the Bad Batch, although I don't really understand Longshot or the guy with the glasses. It doesn't seem like they have physical enhancements, they just learned and practiced very specialized skills, which is something we've seen clones do already. I like Rex a lot, though. At this point, he's one of the best characters in the show, and his relationship with Anakin is fantastic. This arc is just, it doesn't do it for me. And the main villain is Trench, who I think is just very poorly written. He suffers from the same issue as he does the first appearance he has. He uses an algorithm to win every battle, and then when he doesn't have it, he immediately loses. I really hate Trench a lot. Number 29, Water War, Gungan Attack, and Prisoners. While rewatching the show, I remembered watching most of the episodes as a kid, but I do not have any recollection of watching these 3 episodes. That said, they're actually pretty good. The plot and pacing of the first and third episode especially are really enjoyable, with the Jedi trying to help a young prince command a civil war against the best Dooku crony in the entire series. Throughout Clone Wars, there are a bunch of 1 or 2 episode separatist leaders that report to Dooku, and this arc has the best one. He's a brutalist shark dude who straight up eats his enemies with his shark mouth. It's pretty metal, and he dies like this. It's amazing. The color palette gets a little exhausting if you're watching them back to back to back like I did, and the pacing of the second episode particularly drags. Small things could have made this one higher, but it's actually a really fun arc. Number 28, Rookies. A really great introduction to the Domino Squad, who'd we follow the remainder of the series. There's not a ton to say about this one, it's just a really good clone-based episode. However, in this one, the clones get to swear, and that's really fun.
What the hell was that? That was an eel. Now that's why we have the regulation not to go outside. Let's move before it comes back.
Number 27, The Mandalore Plot, Voyage of Temptation, and Duchess of Mandalore. This is the introduction to the Mandalore plotline that we followed the remainder of the series. We get the Duchess, a fantastic love interest for Obi-Wan, and Pre Vizsla and Deathwatch, who are really good side villains. The third episode is a little more politics and is a little slow, but has some really fun Sidious Palpatine moments that kind of carry it. And the politics of it actually make a lot of sense, so I think that makes it a little more grounded and easy to follow. I think I like the second episode with the ship sabotage the most, and man, the Darksaber will never not be cool.
This lightsaber was stolen from your Jedi temple by my ancestors during the fall of the Old Republic.
Number 26, A Friend in Need. Overall, I really like the plot of this one. Lux Bonteri, who's Ahsoka's love interest, drags her into this dumbass plan to join Death Watch and kill Dooku to avenge his mom, who is a separatist senator. A lot of episodes in Clone Wars have decent plots and just need a moment that puts them over the top. This is the episode that has that moment, and it cements Ahsoka as a fully capable badass Jedi. Just this moment.
Ahsoka, now!
Thanks, buddy.
Stop! The Jedi is mine.
Number 25, The Rush Clovis Arc. I wasn't really sure what to call this one, but we're just going to go with the Clovis arc. Clovis is a much better sleazeball in this one than he is in the episode he's introduced. He's still the entitled frat boy, but a little toned down and much more reflective of an actual toxic gaslighting douchebag. I know this is supposed to be Anakin's dark side slipping out, but dang is it fun to watch him beat the crap out of Clovis. And it's all part of Palpatine's plan to take over the Banks as well. I really do enjoy seeing just how many steps ahead he is of everyone else. It's really fun. And Clovis dies at the end, so we all win. Plus a little cameo from everyone's favorite bounty hunter, Ito, and his pup friend. And of course he uses a bowcaster, because he rocks. Number 24, Cloak of Darkness. I'm making an executive decision here. This is technically connected to the Bombad Jedi story, but all the characters are different, and this one is so much better, so I'm going to call it its own episode. Sue me. Anyway, in this one, they're trying to get Nute Gunray back to Coruscant to stand trial, but Ventress infiltrates their ship, and Luminar and Ahsoka have to fight her. The duel's good, the stakes are fun and interesting. I think it may have gotten a little inflated because it's so early and some of those Season 1 episodes are really a drag, but all in all, I like this episode a lot. Number 23, Legacy of Terror and Brain Invaders. The second half of the Battle of Geonosis episodes, in part 1 they're investigating the underground lair of the Geonosian Queen and her undead army. It's fun and it's totally different than every episode in the series in the best possible way. The Brain Invader parasites are really scary and insidious, and I really like how dark and cramped and awkward it all feels. I also really enjoyed the second part where Ahsoka is ducking and hiding around the ship to try to avoid brainwashed clones. A good time, even if sneaking around a ship happens in almost every episode in this series, it feels like. Number 22, Bounty. This one is the follow-up to Massacre, when Ventress is on her own after Dooku tries to kill her and the Night Sisters have been killed off by Grievous. I don't mind this group of bounty hunters she joins, although I really dislike Boba Fett, but he gets put in his place at the end of this one, so it's cool. I especially like Latz and her metal Vine Whip weapons. No other weapon like them in Star Wars. I really like how Ventress does the right thing but still gets paid. It leaves her in this kind of moral gray area where she'll prioritize getting paid, but will do the right thing all else equal. It's definitely the best Ventress-centric episode. I would have watched more of this. Number 21, Grievous Intrigue. A really enjoyable, true standalone episode. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Adi Gallia have to make a daring rescue of Eth Koth, who's been captured by General Grievous. The pacing is good, the lightsaber duel and rivalry between Kenobi and Grievous is great, and I really like Adi Gallia. I'm sure nothing bad will happen to her. That's called foreshadowing. Number 20. Heroes on Both Sides and Pursuit of Peace. For my money, this is the best political episode of this series, and it's not particularly close. I really like the separatist homeworld of Raxus. It's like if a Midwestern suburb was a Star Wars planet. This is also as close to Game of Thrones as this show ever gets. Political killings, and it's the only episode that talks about how war expense has caused a decline in social programs like schools and healthcare. These two episodes are dense and genuinely interesting. It also introduces Lux Bonteri, an interesting love-ish interest for Ahsoka, which is kind of a fun change of pace. Number 19. Kidnapped, Slaves of the Republic, and Escape from Kadavo. If those titles don't ring a bell, it's when the gang gets taken captive by slavers and Anakin fights Count Dooku with a whip. This one really shows how close our three main characters have gotten over the years. All three of them trust each other a lot and have each other's backs through this really emotional arc. It also is the first time we see Obi-Wan really off his game and without a plan when he's put in a slave prison and can't help others. Rex has to save his ass. Really starts his path through the end of the series into episode 3. Also, we get a nice meta-commentary line at the end of the first episode with Yoda saying, "Slavery is the tool for the rise of the Sith." Gotta love some foreshadowing. A good arc, but not quite as compelling as some of the other really great arcs in this show. Number 18. Lair of Grievous. This episode is a testament to how important pacing is in an action show, and this episode just knocks it out of the park as Kit Fisto and his former Padawan Nadar work their way through Grievous's lair. Unbeknownst to them, it's a trap set by Grievous to test him. I have this one as my second highest ranked standalone episode. It's just that good. The lightsaber battle between Fisto and Grievous is definitely the highlight of Season 1. Number 17. The Lost One. They packed so much into this episode that I couldn't believe it was only one episode when I rewatched it. In my memory, I was so sure this was a two-parter. I had this ranked the exact same as Lair of Grievous. I'd say they're similar quality, but the stakes in this one are a little bit higher, so I put it ahead. It starts with Yoda and the rest of the boys investigating Sifo Dyas and the creation of the clone army. There's this scene where Yoda asks the Chancellor something, and when he's leaving the office, the Chancellor glares at him from behind the desk, and horror strings play, and it gives me shivers every single time. It's great. At the end, we get a great lightsaber duel between Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Dooku. I always love watching Dooku's fighting scenes because his style is just so visually appealing. Really great standalone episode. Number 16. Brothers and Revenge. It's the Maul introduction, and they build it really beautifully. As Savage gets closer to finding his long-lost brother, we follow Dooku, Ventress, and Anakin and Ahsoka as they feel the disturbance in the Force, really confirming that these two together will be a problem. And man, Maul's reveal is scary. It's the closest the show ever gets to horror, and it does it really well. Also, a really good color palette in these episodes. Everything is coated in red, and it works super well. I really like Maul's spider legs. It's a physical representation of his mental state. I think it's some of the best representation of what the corruption of the dark side can do to someone. He's so consumed by hate and revenge that his mind is just fried. Mother Townsend literally has to pull some of the dark side out of him just to get his mind functional again. Obviously, he immediately calls out Obi-Wan once he's able to. I like that Ventress gets back into the fray in this one. It tracks with what her character has become. It's a profitable venture that could give her some solace for releasing a monster on the galaxy, so of course she takes it. The all-red lightsaber battle where she comes to save Obi-Wan rocks. A great indicator for things to come. One of those episodes that's really hard to rank. The top end of the show is just really strong. We're to the really good episodes now. Number 15. Landing at Point Rain and Weapons Factory. I'm still so baffled by these episodes. A kid's show doing an homage to Saving Private Ryan should not work, and it works so well. They use camera angles and tracking shots that they never used the rest of the show, and it's a really bold choice that pays off so well. A lot of cool camera angles. A lot of the ground battles in this show are kind of like muted and blend together, but this one stands out beautifully. The tracking shot of Anakin's squad rushing the shield just looks amazing. An episode that could otherwise be average really stands out with creative cinematography. The second part with Ahsoka and Barriss gives us the Geonosian catacombs, which are much different than the rest of the episode, and it keeps it fresh and interesting to look at. Anakin saving Ahsoka at the end of the episode using the bond and trust they've gained over the last season and a half is really nice too. Number 14, the Ryloth arc. 3 distinct episodes that come together to tell the cohesive story of the Republic reclaiming one of its poorest planets. Absolutely the high point of Season 1 for me, as much as I enjoy Lair of Grievous. The second episode of the 3 really proves the show's ability to tell emotional stories in a compelling way as 2 clones meet a Twi'lek girl that they must escort to safety through her destroyed village. The third episode has some interesting battles and good commentary on war profiteering. It gives us our first taste of Mace Windu in the series, and that really rocks. A lot to love about this arc. I think it's where Clone Wars really started to hit its stride. Number 13, the Citadel arc. It's just a really solid arc. The gang has to break into the Separatists' most invulnerable prison to save Master Even Peel and his whiny-ass Admiral Tarkin. The break-in is really exciting. They have to free solo this electrified cliff face, and it's scary as hell. R2 also gets to command a battle droid unit, and it's a nice little comedy break in an otherwise really tense few episodes. In the end, Ahsoka becomes a vital member to the mission that she wasn't even supposed to be on, and a bunch of Jedi come to rescue them. It's really fun to see 3 Jedi fighters, not something we get to see a lot. Also, Echo from Domino Squad dies in this one, and we're down to 1 member left of Domino Squad. Number 12, Revival. The highest rated standalone episode in my list, this is just about as much greatness as you can cram into a 22-minute episode of TV. A horrifying Jedi death, a ton of Hondo, and one of the best lightsaber duels of the entire series. I mean, Obi-Wan dual-wielding against Darth Maul and his brother? What more could you want? Rule of Cool dialed up to 20. This is such a fun watch.
Their riches will be ours!
Number 11, the Mortis arc. I'm sure a lot of people would have this one higher if they made their own list. I really enjoy these episodes, however, sometimes it feels like it bites off a little more than it can chew in terms of scale. That said, the brother giving Anakin visions of what he will become is a pretty legendary moment in the show. I think my biggest problem with this one is that it feels like nothing has really changed when it's over because their memories get erased, which is kind of an odd feeling. It's really fun to see Anakin do Chosen One things though, and Mortis as a world is really cool, so it sneaks up pretty high here. Number 10, Young Jedi arc. Honestly, I can't believe I have this arc this high, but I don't know, man. It's just really fun to watch. The kids are fantastically written. They really sound like kids who have grown up learning together while still having their own flaws and personalities. It's kind of like if Breakfast Club was ported into Star Wars. There's a freaking Wookiee youngling who is adorable, and then you get Hondo in the mix, which always makes things better. He's trying to kidnap children because he wants the crystals for lightsabers, because of course he does. That's got to be like the most valuable commodity in the whole Star Wars universe. I think it's just a great addition to the Star Wars lore to me. It feels so very Star Wars. And then we get these goofy kids actually having to act like Jedi and be heroic in saving Ahsoka, who sacrificed herself to save them. And then they have to team up with Hondo to escape Grievous getting revenge for Dooku. And I don't know how it all works for me, it just kind of does. It's such a risk to throw this into the season that they thought was going to be the last, and it just pays off. I love the new duel between Ahsoka and Grievous too. It really shows how strong she's gotten. I'm sure there are some people who couldn't stand these episodes, and I feel bad for them because this arc is quintessential Star Wars Clone Wars to me. Like, the point was to tell stories that didn't fit into the movies. This is the only show that could ever try this, and I really enjoy it. Number 9, Padawan Lost and Wookiee Hunt. Hey, Season 2, this is how you do a finale! Second in our top 10 is the perfect culmination to everything Ahsoka has learned so far in this series. And you can tell she really has learned and become a strong leader and a powerful Jedi. Ahsoka leads a group of lost Jedi out of this horrifying island where lizards hunt Jedi for sport, and it's like pretty scary. She escapes with the help of freaking Chewbacca. It's a really great watch, and it's a brilliantly done season finale. Number 8, Clone Brain Chip Arc, The Tragedy of Fives. This is a show that is usually negatively impacted by the dramatic irony around it. This arc completely banks on it, and it works perfectly. As we watch Fives uncover the conspiracy behind the brain chips and the clones that will force them to execute Order 66, we are so desperate for him to get his findings to someone who matters, but we know it can't. And then he finally gets in front of the Chancellor and he thinks he's going to save the Republic, just to find out that he's the one who orchestrated it. I like to think Sidious told him exactly what the plan was while the audience is shut out of the room. The death of Fives is an absolute fucking soul crusher. Great storytelling, and they do it with no lightsaber duels, just drama. It's incredible. Number 7. Yoda learns Force Ghosting arc. Probably the most original trilogy feeling arc of the series, Yoda has to go on an adventure with Force Ghost Qui-Gon to learn, well, Force Ghosting. It talks a lot about Yoda confronting the feeling that he has failed a lot of his students, as many have died, left the Order, or switched sides against the Jedi. It's really interesting to get such a deep dive into the psyche of such a wise and stoic character. There's also a lot of fun Easter egg type things for Star Wars fans, like Darth Bane's appearance. In the end, we get a mental showdown with Yoda and Sidious trying to get Yoda to abandon his Jedi principles and crack, while Yoda chooses to sacrifice himself to save Anakin, which he thinks he is actually doing at the time, even though he knows Anakin is a high risk to turn against the Jedi. Just a really unique and really great arc. If this was the finale to the show, I would have been okay with it. Number 6. Obi-Wan Undercover arc. First off, man, what a fun idea for an arc. This is the stuff you can make when you have 133 episodes to play with. Fuck it, why not fake Obi-Wan's death and send him undercover to investigate a conspiracy against the Chancellor? Awesome. It's genuinely a joy to watch Obi-Wan undercover, trying to fit into this criminal underworld he clearly doesn't belong in. And I like that they don't fake out Obi-Wan's death for too long for the audience. Literally one scene. It's so Anakin doesn't know he's alive, not us, which keeps tensions high the entire saga as Anakin gets closer to the dark side. Cad Bane and Obi-Wan are a great combo, constantly trying to get a leg up on each other. I really like the box episode too. It's a good kind of breakup after watching a prison break and a chase episode. We also get to see our pal Ito again. Cad Bane murders a guy for his hat, and we get to see Obi-Wan's marksmanship. So uncivilized, even for one of the best snipers in the galaxy. Jedi really are a cut above everyone else. The finale is a fun kind of kidnap switcheroo thing, but it ends with an excellent Anakin versus Dooku duel, probably my favorite of the series. The first one where Anakin really gets a leg up using all his anger from the council lying to him. When he chokes Dooku, you actually fear like, oh shit, this kid's really a danger now. It's just a really great and unique arc, and it's one of the ones that makes this show a treasure. Number 5, Umbara arc. I know that Krell has become a bit of a meme, but he is a damn good villain. And let me just say, Umbara is the most beautifully designed world in this entire series. I mean, holy crap, the lighting and the Umbaran warrior suits and weapons and the sound their weapons make growing in volume as they get closer, just everything about this arc is beautifully designed. And the unique Umbaran weapons, cementing them as a unique and terrifying enemy, nothing like the droids the clones usually fight, and the freaking impenetrable caterpillar tanks, I could write pages about the detail and effort put into this episode. Credit to D. Bradley Baker for making all these clones come to life as individuals, not just in this arc, but the series as a whole. This arc just has everything you could want from a clone-centric arc. Self-sacrifice, comedy, unity, and having to overcome their greatest issue, a responsibility to follow orders. Them having to overcome this just excellent villain who hates them but is their superior is fantastic. And man, Krell is excellent. I think the only character I've hated as much as Krell is Dolores Umbridge. When they recognize the betrayal, it is so sad, and it feels very earned. The death of Waxer is just brutal. He's one of the clones from the Ryloth arc, and it just hits like a ton of bricks. You can see exactly how it makes all of them feel that they killed their own brothers. I just love everything about this arc. For me, this is the defining arc for the clones. Number 4, Onderon Rebels arc. This arc is fantastic in both concept and execution. It's the closest the show actually gets to real-world military strategy, and it makes total sense. Basically, the gang goes to Onderon to train a group of rebels to retake the planet. Clone manufacturing is expensive, and they're spread really thin across the galaxy, so if they can just teach locals to fight their battles for them, they can consolidate their resources more easily. It's literally what America has done countless times in South America and the Middle East. I'm not going to go really in-depth on that, but the parallel is interesting. I really love the planet, too. There's all kinds of fun Jurassic Park animals, and it makes the planet feel very lived in. I really like the shift from training in the jungle to using targeted attacks inside the city, and then back to the jungle for the full-scale war once they get strong enough. All the characters introduced are really great. Every one of them feels very real and nuanced. Stila is a natural but unwilling leader, Saw wants to retake Onderon for personal glory, Lux wants to avenge his mother without knowing how. Even the deposed king is great, a very grounded and regretful leader whose inaction led to the takeover of his planet. Watching the rebels grow and succeed together is so much fun, with the gang still present but taking a back seat here for one of the few times in the series. When they destroy the power station, I got really hyped. I love how real this arc feels. It feels like you're in a moment in history almost, like the viewer has become part of the events that will be a turning point in the history of this planet. And they stepped up the cinematography in this one. They do a freaking dolly zoom in an animated kids show. That is dedication to make something good. And we get friggin' Hondo saving the frickin' day in this arc, which you know I love. The decision to draw this out over 4 episodes and really let us see the characters grow and adapt, get to the precipice of success, and then have Stila die hits like a freight train. I could talk about this arc for an hour. I would honestly watch an entire series of this. Number 3. Maul takes over Mandalore arc. I really like the villains in this show. Dooku, Grievous, and Sidious are all really well done, but Darth Maul just blows them out of the water because he's the only character they could do whatever they wanted with. And this is his arc. No, seriously, he's the protagonist of this arc. The only time that the primary character in an arc isn't the good guy is the couple episodes that follow Ventress after Dooku tries to kill her, and that's pretty much it. I really love the simplicity of this arc too. Maul wants wealth, power, and revenge, and that's it. He teams up with Death Watch to take over Mandalore, where he can base his black market empire. Watching him just decimate these crime families that everyone is afraid of is fantastic. The chess game between Maul and Vizsla the entire first and second episode is great, and Maul ending it by using Vizsla's warrior pride against him is a really fun send-off that gives Vizsla a memorable moment and then lets us retighten our focus on the rest of the series. Obi-Wan gets brought into the final episode just to beat him over the head with a chair, and it's brutal. Satine's death, the one person that Obi-Wan really loved dying, is just a soul crusher, cementing that this is Maul's arc. He got what he wanted. He hurt Obi-Wan the same way Obi-Wan hurt him. Obi-Wan took Maul's future, and so Maul took his, taking the only person that could have gotten Obi-Wan to leave the Order. And then Sidious got involved and just, holy fuck. The best lightsaber duel in the series, hands down. This arc is like the best Star Wars fanfic ever written, and they just made it, and it is fantastic all the way through. The shot of Obi-Wan opening the hangar door to a war-torn Mandalore is the shot of the series for me.
You dead.
You have no idea.
Number 2, Temple Bombing Arc. And now we get to what was supposed to be the series finale, and if this is how the show ended, I would have been okay with it, and at the time, I was. This episode isn't just the tragedy of Ahsoka, but the tragedy of this era of the Jedi Order as a whole. I want to rip into the detail of this arc so badly, but I would talk for another half hour, so I'll just try to scratch the surface. Not a detail of this arc is out of place for the plot to make sense. Here's Barriss walking with Ahsoka and Tarkin, as Ahsoka says she wants the person responsible to die. This entire arc is like that. Everything in this is so well thought out. I'll move on. I love how quickly the plot turns, too. It goes from investigating to framing so fast, and you can feel exactly why Ahsoka keeps making mistakes. It's like whiplash. Once she's framed for the killing of the bomber, of course she uses the keycard to escape. And of course she wouldn't stop to explain herself, and she would just try to escape. Of course Barriss knew she would do this. They were best friends, and Barriss knew better than almost anyone how Ahsoka's mind works and how impatient she is. The freaking tension as she's running through the prison hallways and just keeps running into dead clones is phenomenal. The escape through the sewers, also phenomenal. And goddamn, if Obi-Wan opening the hangar doors the shot of the series, Ahsoka flying into the second level of Coruscant is right on its heels. The third episode with her and Ventress investigating is really fun too. Ahsoka is willing to team up with anyone willing to help, which of course just makes her look more guilty. And Barriss is less subtly the villain here, especially if you have already seen it, continuously probing Ahsoka on her location and finally just telling her where to go. The last episode will make you absolutely hate the Jedi Council. Mace Windu and Ki-Adi-Mundi especially. We understand exactly why Anakin ends up choosing to betray them. They absolutely suck. The last episode is so tense too, because Ahsoka isn't in episode 3 and they really could have just killed her off, and the thought of that plays on your mind the entire time. We get dark Anakin too, capturing Ventress in his fight with Barriss where he's absolutely terrifying. Only 2 shows have ever made me cry, BoJack Horseman and Star Wars Clone Wars, when Ahsoka walks down the stairs of the Jedi Temple for the last time. This arc is the absolute best of Clone Wars. for about 6 years. Number 1. The finale arc. Since the beginning of the series, fans wanted to see Order 66 play out in the Clone Wars, and after 12 years of waiting, we finally get it, and it just so surpasses any of my loftiest expectations. Where do I even start with this one? Plo Koon and Ayla Secura with their troops and the spots where they'll be killed is the first visual, and then we get to Anakin coming to save Obi-Wan using the exact same strategy that Obi-Wan used to delay for Anakin in the movie that kicked the series off 12 years ago. We get Fulcrum Easter eggs, and then we get the whole gang back together for the first time since Ahsoka walked down those steps 6 years ago. Anakin is just a vessel for the audience in these scenes. He's as excited as we are to have Ahsoka back with the gang, and it's just overwhelming, but it's clear things have changed. Ahsoka's come into her own now, and she doesn't really respect Obi-Wan anymore because she's become so disillusioned to the Jedi Council. And the last scene where Ahsoka and Anakin say goodbye is so tragic, and we're like 8 minutes into this movie-length arc. I love that we end this thing on Mandalore. It just feels so right. Bo-Katan's conversation with Almec, and she's just so done with him while he's trying to play politics. And we get to my favorite moment in the entire series, the superhero entrance to just end all other superhero entrances. Holy shit, what a badass. I don't even care about the logic or physics. This is Rule of Cool pushed to its logical conclusion, and nothing has ever made me more excited for an episode of TV than this moment. I love that they pull Maul back in. No better way for this series to end. The best protagonist and the best antagonist pitted together for the finale of the show, and it just works so well. Maul walking around Ahsoka with her lightsabers ignited, just monologuing, is the absolute most Maul thing ever. The dramatic irony of Maul being the only one left who actually knows what's going to happen, and then we get them all in the throne room, and Mandalore's at war, and the window explodes, and dust blowing in their faces, and Maul's trying to get Ahsoka to join him, and something crazy happens. We are actively cheering for the main protagonist to join up with one of the main antagonists of this series, and that is just crazy good storytelling. The tragedy of Ahsoka being too close to Anakin to see what he was becoming. What a final lightsaber fight for the show, too. The choice to bring in Ray Park to do the mocap for Maul was just mwah. And then we get to Order 66, and holy fuck. Maul and Ahsoka feel the entire galaxy scream out as it happens. To Rex, who's finally understanding what Fives was telling him, yelling out for him as his mind is taken over and he's powerless to stop it. The saving of Rex and the escape from the ship is harrowing, and it just never misses a beat. Ahsoka choosing to save Rex and let Maul go is, just crazy. And the last scene with the helmets is Ahsoka and Rex bury these men that they've been fighting with for years. A show about the greatest tragedy in the universe ending in tragedy. The closing shot of Vader walking away reflected in a fallen clone's helmet. This is as good as this show gets. This is as good as Star Wars gets. This might be as good as TV gets. So there it is, guys. My ranking of every episode of Star Wars Clone Wars. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Pretty big show, pretty hefty load there. So definitely going to be some argument about where things should go. Please let me know in the comments if you liked it, and if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, subscribe and tell me what you want to see, because there are a couple other shows I'm thinking about doing this with. So just let me know. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.